Before we get going with today's podcast, I want to remind you about a great opportunity to learn football at Lauren's First and Goal Coaches Clinic. The clinic is to benefit pediatric brain tumor research as well as cancer services, and the lineup, as I mentioned, is an incredible one. 160 speakers, and right now you can get the ticket to that clinic, $49 for an individual, $150 for a staff of 5, so $30 a coach there. But you need to act now. That expires once it hits 2021 here, midnight on Friday. Again, check it out at lfgf.coachesclinic.com. On today's episode, we focus on special teams and recruiting technology, and joining me to discuss both of those is the linebackers and special teams coordinator at Columbia, Justin Stovall. Justin, it's great to have you here on the podcast.
Great to be here, Keith. Thanks for having me.
Well, Justin, there's a lot for you that you've tackled and you have going on, and we're going to dig into, as I said, special teams today, and we're going to take a look at some of the things that you're doing in recruiting that I feel are really interesting in how you're using the technology. Before we get into all that, though, want to kind of walk through the beginning of your career and just start with, what was it that spurred you on or encouraged you to get into this profession and become a football coach?
Well, I would say the first thing is I've had some amazing coaches, great influence on my life all the way through childhood and then into college. And, I think, as I got into coaching, it was the coaches that coached me that got me into the door. So, they were really the driving force. But then I realized that, who I am and what the game and the coaches that I've been around and other guys within the game that I've been around have helped make me, that's the opportunity that I see in coaching is to be around people that are at the cusp, at the college level. That's where I want to be. So, they're at the cusp of some major life-changing decisions. And, guys like Coach Luce, who recruited me out of Florida, that really, to Lafayette, in the collegiate career, my collegiate playing career, has really, set the path for the remainder of my life. And in the Ivy League at Columbia, where I am now, coaching linebackers and special teams, we talk about 4 years at Columbia, but it's really 40 years. It's the rest of your life, your career after. So, with that in mind, that's really the main reason I got into coaching.
And I know for you, this has been a great opportunity to really soak in from some great coaches. And, from your current head coach to where you're at right now, we're back to Villanova with Andy Talley, who's a Hall of Famer. Those guys definitely have been influential, but, for you, it was being a sponge and taking that in. Talk to us about how those guys influenced you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just they're and I could start with John Troxell, who's been a long-time head coach at Division III school, Franklin and Marshall, who got me into coaching. He unbelievable influence. Then over to Villanova with Andy Talley. When you just and now at Columbia, Dave Cicchini over at Bucknell, but these are all and Andy Cohen at Lehigh. But when you look at Andy Talley and Al Bagnoli, who I coach under right now, who I think is another future Hall of Famer, the amount of knowledge I've been able to gain from those guys, just in their approach, their philosophy, how to run a program, how to build a program, how to turn a program around. I obviously am participating, but I'm following their move. I'm learning how to be a great leader. That's the value I've gained from them. And then my ability to implement it in just my subsection of the team, the linebackers or the special teams, to take their philosophies, to take their approach, learn from that, then reapply it on my section of the team to try to have the best execution to help us win week in and week out, and build the best relationships with the players. That's really what I've learned.
When we look at how we develop as coaches, and really now more than ever, you're a part of it with Lauren's First and Goal. I mean, we have 160 speakers there, an incredible lineup, a lot to learn from those guys. We have all the other clinics that are going on. The virtual world has opened things up. You talked about being a sponge, but, some of that can become overwhelming. What's your approach to handling all the knowledge you've gained over time and all the knowledge you continue to gain, again, to be able to have something that's executable for your players?
Right. No, I mean, well, first, I think you need a big drive to store all your film and documents that you're going to get over time. I think that's number one. At least you're not traveling around with the boxes of 3-ring binders anymore. But, that you need to definitely subscribe to the Lawrence First and Goal Clinic, to have year-long access to this stuff, because I don't think that it's something that you can ingest in that short amount of time and retain it all. You got to keep revisiting the material, throughout the course of the year, subjects, that are paramount to you or at a premium at that time, because I think throughout the course of the year, you're going to run into different things that you may struggle with, that coaches within the Lawrence First and Goal Clinic, there's such a diverse amount of information being shared by, like you said, some amazing coaches. The lineup is incredible. So you're sitting there saying, all right, we're struggling in the red zone, or I need some red zone ideas. There's guys talking about the red zone or third down or blitzes, or, you name it, special teams, offense. So I want to learn, even as a defensive coach, like what offensive coaches are thinking. I'm going to go check that out, So I think that's how you do it. You're always learning. You forget things that you have to relearn, and that's just part of the process.
It is, but ultimately, we're going to have all this knowledge in our head as coaches, and we have to. We've got to be the filter for that, right? What's going to go to our players? What's going to go into our playbook? What are the ways we're going to teach these guys? The drills we're going to use. There's limitations to all of that. You can't do it all. What's your advice in, taking this knowledge and making it something that's actionable?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know you asked that before, and I didn't really answer it. So, I think that you have to have a foundation, a very simple foundation, philosophy, what you want to do schematically, even philosophically, what you're trying to accomplish, right? And the goals. You don't want to have a million goals. You need to have a couple goals, right? But those goals influence a lot of other outcomes, right? That within the game. So I think the same thing within the scheme, right? You said a great foundation. You don't need you're not going to start introducing with a million plays or a million different fronts, right? You're going in with a single front, a single coverage, and you're in or special teams, right? A single return or a single protection, and you're installing that. But from that, you're going to build on, right? You're going to build on that, and I don't think you move to the next thing until you have the execution that you're going to need to be able to move to the next thing, right? So that's what I've learned. I've learned to be very simple. I've learned to execute at a high level at a very few things. I think Bruce Lee said it best. He said, I don't fear the man with 10,000 kicks. I fear the man that's practiced one kick 10,000 times. So that's kind of the philosophy that I approach the game with, and I encourage other coaches to do the same.
Yeah, I was reading a book this morning, and as you were talking about that, I remember just a phrase that I highlighted, underlined, and starred. And the book is called Limitless, and the author's Jim Quick. But he was talking about the myth. He called it a myth that knowledge equals power. Right? We hear that all the time, and
right.
The way he corrected that, and it was really that knowledge plus action equals power, which is exactly what you're talking about here, right? It's not being,
right.
Taking all this stuff and having all these different things. And especially as we, get into talking about special teams here, it's probably one of the most nuanced part of the games, right? Like we're going to go through and maybe have this really thick playbook for offense, defense that explains everything and has all our adjustments, and we can do all these different things, etc. And we have the time, we have the meeting time, we have the walkthrough time, we have the the practice time, the fundamental time, etc. to be able to do more in those areas. But as you get into looking at special teams, you're going to have to pick your poison. Like you said, you can go and learn all these things, and it's important that you do, because ultimately that's going to make you better. But that action part of it is so important, right? And you mentioned to me, in what you do is, being a linebackers coach, which again is the majority of your time on the field, right? That's what you do. But the special teams part is what you get asked about the most, and I think it's just one of those things that continues to be an area that people have to figure out a way to be the most efficient. It is the part of the game that, there's limitations placed on it, et cetera. You'll hear guys talk about, winning all three phases of the game and placing the importance on special teams. And I can tell you, like, everywhere I've been as I moved up, different levels of the game, I've just seen that, wow, I thought I was detailed in this, and I thought I knew about it, and I thought I knew how to do these things, but special teams was always a thing where I found, like, picking up a little bit more and understanding how to do it, not just what to do, but how to do it in practice, that there's really a secret sauce to that. So talk to us a little bit about, just for you, your approach to special teams. You mentioned it a little bit here, right? Not having all kinds of schemes, but something that you can really refine and be good at. But talk to us about your approach to special teams play.
Yeah, that's how I get to that simplification. I look at it and I really, to be as efficient as possible, I try to, when I look at everything we're doing from a special teams perspective, and I want to find what's the common thread within that I can find out, all right, we can determine what scheme we want to do, right? But then the common thread is all right, what position is going to fit that? What kind of personnel is going to fit that best? Then what coach on staff can coach that personnel problem best within that scheme? And then also saying, all right, from a personnel perspective, it's like, all right, we have to develop the talent within special teams, right? So I don't want to do a ton of things schematically because I look at it philosophically and say, all right, this offensive guy is also a starter on offense or a backup, and he's learning what they're asking him to do on offense. And the same thing with the defensive guy. And I have to say that for both the players and the coaches, whether or not you can have as many slogans as you want, make special teams important, so on and so forth. I approach it with understanding that those players and coaches, his title's the wide receiver coach. His title's the DB coach. His on the roster, it says he plays corner, right? It says he plays wide receiver. So I approach it with that mindset, with the understanding that is where their emphasis is going to be throughout the course of the week. But I also have to make them or have them view their portion of the special teams not be overwhelming, be something that they feel is important and that they feel they can do very well within the course of the game and have an impact doing that. So, to be honest with you, I think I could change what we're doing, and I think that we could do it equally as well. Because it all comes down to execution. I tell the guys all the time, it's like this, the plan is nothing without execution. Execution is the reason the plan looked good. So I always put it back on them, in the understanding that, the only way that this is all going to come together is the players going out and executing. So I put a high demand on that. I don't ask a lot of them, but what I do ask of them, there's a very, very high demand on that, throughout the course of the week, the bar is set extremely high, and in the few things that we're asking them to do. And the players, they meet that challenge a lot of the time. I think that if you make it overwhelming, you're doing too many things, you're putting guys in positions that they're not comfortable, or confident in, you're not going to get the level of execution you want.
When I look at special teams, and especially as you move up the levels, right, there's that aspect of, I can remember when I first started, and it was a young high school coach, and our special teams time at that time was legitimately, let's get this unit out there and run some reps. And there was no individual, there wasn't the fundamentals being developed. And I look at how special teams are run today, and how, as I got to the college level, we would run them and, become much more refined in how we're doing. But also, really paying attention to who you put out there and the skill sets that those guys have. So you coach the linebackers, and those guys certainly are guys you look to get involved. But, how do you go about that evaluation process, right? Because you don't necessarily have a lot of reps to give away in that aspect either. But how are you going to go about making sure that you got the right guys on the field based on some of the skill sets they have that maybe don't necessarily apply to their regular position?
Right. So it's like you got to put them in a position of something that they can accomplish. What are you asking them to do? That's the first thing. What are you asking them to do? And then you're trying to say, what body type fits that? Right. So there's going to be positions where, your bigger linebackers, your DNs, your tight ends are going to fit much better. And then other positions on the field where your corner, safeties, wide outs and running backs are going to fit, those positions. So I guess when I look at it, I'm seeing, okay, let's just take the 4 core special teams units, 11 guys. I see 44 different positions on the field, but then at the same time, you can basically split things in half and develop from a depth perspective. And I encourage a lot of guys to do this when they're looking at trying to figure out how to fill their depth chart, because that becomes challenging when you're trying to get your quality depth and within special teams, is being very symmetrical, right side, left side, and always designing your schemes that way so you can have 3 guys in a rotation. So you have your 2 starters and then 1 guy backing up the right and the left side. So now you're able to, and then within practice, able to work that rotation. So you have your next guy in the game, right? Rather than, now you have 2 different backups, when you as a coordinator or the team can benefit from having this guy next in the game rather than either of those 2 backups, if that makes sense. So I think that's what you have to do a lot of the time. You find yourself in that situation, having to sub a guy out in the course of the game, and you want your next best player in the game, because sometimes you're digging down into the bus, and saying, all right, this guy was on the bubble of even traveling. He's going in the game and taking a rep. So
yeah, that's something different too. When you think about the travel rosters at the college level get cut down, so you don't necessarily have that luxury of everybody, as you said, being on the bus. When you look at, again, the personnel, I know a lot of coaches say, this is an important unit. We're going to play starters on this unit, starters from offense or defense. And I agree with that philosophy. I do remember talking with NFL special teams guru Bobby April, a longtime NFL special teams coach, about how many units those starters can be on. For you, is there any kind of formula that you guys like to use in making sure that you're being smart about, a guy who's a starter on O or D being on, too many units?
Yeah, so we do have a philosophy on that. So we max our starters out at 2 units. when you look at the four core, punt, return, kickoff, return. So we limit our starters to two of those units, and I try to look at it also from the perspective of, the value of the unit. So I rank the value of the unit from punt being number one, kickoff return is number two, punt return is number three, and then kickoff's number four. That's my ranking. I think a lot of guys would agree with that, and maybe shuffle those last two are interchangeable. But I'll tell you why. Obviously punt. I think everyone would have punt number one. So we're using our best players that can execute, change the field, do all the things we need to do from a punt perspective, protect and get the ball off. Because that's the one that's going to lose you your game. So most of our starters are on our punt and kickoff return. And I rank kickoff return second because I think that's a great opportunity to get the best player on your team the ball in his hand. And I don't know what opportunities we're going to get throughout the course of the year to return. So he's in there every rep, right? Every time we're taking the field, he's going to be the one beat. And we're going to have our best players so that when we have the opportunity to return one, we're going to try to go the distance with it, which is going to be my clinic, at Lawrence First and Goal Clinic. So I'm going to be talking about how we do things more in depth on kickoff return and why we've been so good there. But punt, then kickoff return. And then I look at punt return and I look at, and kickoff as an opportunity to really groom guys that are deeper on the depth chart, right? There's less thinking. It's more just your one-on-one battle, right? And so I look to get guys in on those units. The scarier thing with punt return for me is you're still playing defense. It's fourth down. So I always like to, I incorporate some offensive guys there. But I like when I incorporate offensive guys within the punt return unit, I like to put them in positions where they're not having to understand formations and eligibility. I think that's a concept that kind of can not escape them, but it's not in their element. It's defensive guys are always in that mindset. So I'm always looking to have linebackers and safeties and corners who are on the punt block unit as defensive players, always having to identify potential for fake, get us into safe, take care of the eligibles, understand what we're going to do if they shift or motion or whatever it may be. I'm putting that on the defensive guys that are part of that unit. But I can typically do that with a guy who's second or third on the on the depth chart on defense, right? And really get some heady, more experienced guys in there to take on those roles while mixing in some young guys. If I have a young wide receiver, right, who may just have made the travel squad, it's week 7, and he doesn't know anything. He just knows coach is throwing me in the game on punt block and he's saying, go block this kick, and I've been evaluating his ability to take off and bend and get to the block point. He's comfortable. He's an athlete, and I don't need him thinking much. I just need him to go block a kick, right, that week. That's a great opportunity to get a young guy some confidence and show a young guy that you're confident in them as well, right? That, hey, you're going in the game. This year, maybe your first college football game, but I got all the confidence in the world in you. And I'm going to send you after it. When we call block, we might only call it once this week. We might not call it at all, but you're going after it. And I think that players, they love that. They want someone who's confident in them, a coach especially, and given an opportunity to impact the game as a young player. And then kickoff's the same way, right? We're kicking 65% touchbacks, right? Like they're having very few opportunities to return. It's an opportunity to sprinkle a young guy in there, right? And he's running down the field on kickoff. It feels like $1 million, but they're not. They have 0 returns all game, right? But he's getting his first college football action, and you're showing confidence in him. So to me, those are all important things, and getting out on the field. I know, as an ex-player, it's like that's such an incredible experience in itself, as a young player, that it's just something to build on, from confidence to culture, to saying, hey, if you work hard you're showing every day in practice that I'm going to get, I'm evaluating you, right? So we get a home game. That's a great opportunity too. Is home game. You're not stuck with these restrictions at home. You can dress everybody. So and we don't redshirt in the Ivy League. So, I'm trying to always encourage these guys to give great effort on scout team, right? Because when we're home, I don't care who's, in the 2 deep when we're home, because everybody dresses. If you're the best guy, I'm putting you on the punt block team, or I'm putting you on the kickoff team. So, run down on the scout team kickoff, show me what you can do, teach them the techniques. And I think it's an important job of a special teams coordinator all throughout the year to be evaluating your talent. And I got a great story as our All-American kickoff returner, Mikey Russos, right? So we were first in the league in kickoff return with the kick returner for 2 years, for 2 years. And he was coming back for his 3rd season as our returner, right? This guy who was so first in the league 2 years in a row, was first team all league as a kickoff returner in the Ivy League. And we were the best kickoff return. So we get to about week 6, he gets hurt. Well, what do? He's a little banged up in the knee. He's our starting corner, right? I'm not putting him back there. It's this week it's our freshman, right? So how did we get into week 6 and a freshman we're throwing back there? Well, he took all of camp, and all 6 weeks we were leading up to that, we were evaluating him, right? And saying, this is the next best guy. And he got his opportunity, and he's been our returner ever since. Not only that, he finished the league as the first team kickoff returner in the league, freshman All-American, and he's been on back-to-back years. He was our guy, and so he took the job and never looked back. So I think you always got to be. You never know who your next guy is going to be. You don't know the situation that it's going to come in, but there's no way that you can't be evaluating your talent all the time and trying to groom them. That's what special teams is about, in my opinion.
Definitely. Coach, I know the other aspect of what you do is, it's the lifeblood of college football is recruiting. And, you shared with me some interesting technology, actually taught me a little bit about how you could do things maybe more efficiently, right? Everything's always a time crunch, even with recruiting, right? There's a lot of guys to look at and contact
right.
and communicate with. And you've been able to find a tool that I think has a ton of potential to help coaches. Talk to us a little bit about your use of technology in recruiting.
Yeah, so I was able to, come across a great tool, in the time that I've been in coaching in college football. Technology has just been injected into this process. Social media, apps, mobile phones, the way we communicate with recruits, right? I used to mail VHS tapes and, DVDs, receive DVDs and everything. And now it's all linked. So everything's going mobile. Information is more available in real time than ever before. And there's an app out there, Roster Spot, that I started to use. It's called Roster Spot. Just like it sounds, all one word. And it is built for coaches, by coaches, and what it does is it really brings together the social element of recruiting and the database management that coaches need, like your front rush, your jump forward, your arms. So it brings together your database to manage your athletes and connections with high school coaches and the athletes. But it also gives you the platform to be able to communicate with those coaches and athletes as well within the recruiting process. The best way for me to describe it, it's like a LinkedIn for recruiting, for collegiate recruiting, specifically, how I'm using it for football.
Right. And I think you shared with me that a lot of it, though, is based on Twitter or social media. Is that correct?
Correct. So it is a social platform. So, I mean, anybody can get on, and use the platform, and really it's just what role are you in on the platform, and who are you looking to communicate with. So, and then the tools and the functionality available to college coaches speaks specifically to the process, which, Twitter's great, and, it's been a great tool, right? I think everybody realizes that and has recognized that, but I think that what Roster Spot realizes is that Twitter's not built for the process. And so it doesn't have all the tools that come with it that coaches need. So that's where Roster Spot filled the gap, in my opinion.
If you could just, to walk us through and give us a kind of a practical example of how this is making life easier for you and being able to use a platform like this. Exactly what does it look like, or how do you use it to, I guess, engage a recruit? Could you give us an example?
Right. So everybody gives questionnaire links and asks recruits to come fill out their questionnaire. So it's the same principle. So I'm still connecting with recruits and trying to get them to come in and fill out a questionnaire. But part of that process is that by doing that, they are on the other end of the app on their phone all the time. So my ability to connect with them isn't just through email. I'm direct messaging through the app. I'm texting through the app. I'm calling through the app. I'm doing all these things, and I can even get out to Twitter through the app. So it's not just, in the early stages here, they've designed it with the data because it is database, and not everybody's a social media user. College coaches are also able to put their data in the platform to utilize data on athletes that aren't users, right? So I can still have my database management and still fully recruit using this platform, but as they fill out questionnaires for, in this case, Columbia, they are becoming a Roster Spot user, and therefore I'm communicating with them on the app as well.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I know technology's, I can remember we got Front Rush for the first time, and how much more efficient that made it. But I think at that time, if I remember right, we weren't allowed to follow or DM or do any of that kind of stuff on Twitter, even at Division III level. And that's been opened up, obviously. I remember the day when texting opened up, because there was a while you couldn't even text. So, it's amazing. Right. The functionality of the technology, I think, is so important. But again, finding those tools that are efficient. And so thanks for sharing that one. I know it's one that I hadn't heard of till you mentioned it to me, but I do think that has a ton of potential for coaches. And again, the name of that one is Roster Spot. So as we wrap things up, Coach, I want to make sure we share your recruiting area for those coaches out there listening who may have a guy for you at Columbia.
Yeah, please. I will say this first: if it's anybody, I can, send me your guys. We can get it to the proper coach, because we always want to make sure we're seeing all the prospects. But my area specifically is the whole state. I have the entire state of Georgia, and I have the east coast of Florida from Jacksonville down to Dade County and Miami. But I also have the Panhandle, so everything across I-10 through the Panhandle of Florida as well. And that's my recruiting area.
And the best way to connect with you?
Oh yeah, best way to connect. You can you can reach out to me on my email. It's j.stovall@columbia.edu, or Twitter, Coach @Coach Stow, STN GO. So @Coach Stow and Go. You can feel free to reach out to me there as well.
And Coach, to wrap things up, always the final question that I ask coaches on this podcast is, when you look at everything you do on and off the field as a coach, what would you say is the one thing that really gives your players the winning edge?
Man, playing for each other. There's nothing like sacrificing for each other. That, to me, you're always gonna have an edge there if your guys are willing to do that, play in and play out, and never let up.
Coach, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you present at Lawrence First and Goal. For our listeners out there, that's coming up when this airs. I think it'll be about 8 days. January 14th it starts. Yeah. It goes through the 17th. An incredible lineup. You can see everybody there at lfgf.coachesclinic.com. Headliners like Luke Fickle, Mac Brown, Jeff Munkin, Greg Schiano. We have a couple more that we're adding. Jeff Collins from Georgia Tech, I know, is another guy we added on there, and just incredible coordinators, position coaches, guys. Most of these guys from FBS and FCS level, though we do have some small college guys mixed in there as well. And again, going to a great cause. Lawrence First and Goal supports and funds pediatric brain tumor research, and then probably one of the most important parts, the cancer services. So when a family needs to take their child for treatment at a hospital, and they need funds for being able to put their family up, and all the things that go along with that, travel, etc., Lawrence First and Goal comes into play and helps families directly, helps take care of them and make sure that they have what they need. And so everything for this clinic, from this clinic, I should say, is going to support Lawrence First and Goal. So please check out the lineup and sign up at lfgf.coachesclinic.com. Coach, again, appreciate you, and thank you for what you're doing for Lawrence First and Goal.
I appreciate you, Keith, and excited for Lawrence First and Goal.